All right, let's do some Mathity-Math. All right, the question says the sum of the first 7 terms of a geometric series is 37,969 over 62,500. And two consecutive terms are 27 over 500 and 81 over 2,500. A lot of really important words here. First things first, let's break down what they give us, break down what we know. Okay, so we know it says the sum the first 7 terms. Okay, so that's saying that we now know that, let's see here, S sub 7, right, that's how we represent that, is this value right here. And it's really a good thought to write down what you know, because then you can work from there and try to find reminders and think about what you're doing, okay? So, and then the next really big key word here, consecutive terms. That means they're in order, they're in line. And we know that it's a geometric series because, man, they are just giving us so much information in this question. So we know it's a geometric series. So if we know that this term multiplies by r to get to that term, that's what a geometric series does, then we know that we could divide this term by that term, and that would in fact give us r. So right now, we are set up to find r. All I do is take this term and divide it by that term. Reiterating this, remember, if these are consecutive, that means I just multiply this by r, and I would have that. So logically, if I take that and divide it by that, I would get r. So here we go. Let's just do it on our handy-dandy calculator. I'll take 81 divided by 2,500. Oops, not that. Let's do that again. 81 divided by 2,500. Right? And I can just divide that by 27 over 500. Boop. It gives me 0.6. Now, if you want to use 0.6, you can. I am a fraction guy, so I'm going to use 3/5. That makes me feel more comfortable, okay? So I know that r is 3/5, or, like, say, if you want, you can use 0.6. As you like. Okie dokie. So, what is the common ratio? Well, r is 3/5 again, or 0.6, as you like. So there we go. We're halfway home. There's only 2 questions. Well, then it says, well, what is the second term? So let's think about logically what a geometric sequence is. You know, if we have u sub 1 and we multiply it by r, then we would get to u sub 2. That's how geometric sequences work. So we can see here, if we want to find the second term, one strategy we could pursue is to go find u sub 1. Right? If we go find u sub 1, we're in business. And so the formula we're going to look at in our formula booklet is, I think we should use this one right here. This can help us isolate u sub 1. And let's see what happens here, okay? So I have this formula, u sub n equals u sub 1 r n minus 1. And if you look at this, if you looked at just what we had and started the substitution process, it should become pretty clear pretty fast, okay? So for instance, oh, look at that. Actually, I made a mistake. Can anyone see it? Well, that says to the u sub n, but this one says the sum. So I kind of fell for my own trap. Oh, because we have the sum, it does make sense to go to the sum. That was me talking without thinking. Classic. So S sub n, the sum, right? Here we go. Let's use that formula. Now we're cooking. And I really do like to encourage everyone to think about the levels of substitution and really let that happen level by level, okay? And watch, I'll really show this here. So the first thing we see here is instead of an n, if we compared these, instead of an n, I have a 7. Go ahead and do that first. This is usually the mistake I see the most, and it's very frustrating because we just have to make that simple first step. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to rewrite that. Everywhere I see an n, I'm going to go ahead and write that 7. So the n becomes a 7. The n becomes a 7. right? And then we divide by r minus 1. And now we can look at this and we can do some bigger substitutions. For instance, this whole shebang here, s sub 7, we know that that is the same as this fraction right here, okay? And we really want to be careful because the mistake I see a lot is that students try to take this and stick it up here, and that's not what we want to do, okay? So here we go. Instead of s sub 7, I'm going to write the fraction out. Okay, that's the first substitution. Now, u sub 1, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find, so that's going to stay right where it's at. But I do have r. We can put in 0.6 or 3/5 as you like. Just because we're using the calculator, it might be a little faster for me to put in the 0.6. And then 0.6 minus 1 would be negative 0.4. And if you don't believe me, use your calculator. It is. Okay? All right. So here we go. Now this just becomes just basic linear algebra in essence. Okay? Because we got to get u sub 1 all by itself. But before we can even get to u sub 1 or get to here, you know, this is all being divided by negative 0.4. Well, the opposite of dividing by negative 0.4 is multiplying by negative 0.4. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say 37,969. Shoop. Got my denominator. I'm multiplying both sides by 0.4. And if you think about it, if I multiplied over here by negative 0.4, this would cancel, right? And that's going to leave me over here with u sub 1 and this piece of information right here. Okay, now before I jump into this, we can just do a little thought experiment here. You know, if you took the time and you were like, hey, I'm gonna do this. So you said 37,969 and you divided it by the denominator, 62,500. You get a pretty big decimal. And if you tried to find a fraction conversion for it, it doesn't really happen. So, okay, not the best step, but you're experimenting here. And then you multiply by negative 0.4. So now you have this, it's getting bigger, and you try to find a fraction if you were like me, like, oh, it's not quite happening. But this value here, it's still good because all of this right here is this right here. Okay? So if you think about it, you could take this and you could divide it all by that, because let's come over here. If I divide both sides by all of this information, if I divide both sides by all that information, well, on this side it will cancel. And then you have your first term all by itself. So what I'm going to do here, so I have that information right there. I'm just going to divide that, because to be clear, that negative 0.24300016, that is the decimal representation of this entire numerator. That's the math I did. Well, I'm going to divide it by this down here, and I can actually just punch this in if I'm careful, right? I make my parentheses. I put, so you can actually see it, sorry. 0.6, okay? I raise it to the 7th power, subtract 1. And you can see here, I'm actually just plugging in exactly what I have in that denominator. I hit enter. And I know now my first term is 0.25. Or we can call that 1/4. So if you come here, my first term is 1/4. Well, we're looking for our second term. Well, how do I get to my second term? Like we said earlier, we just multiply it by our R value. You can't see it. We just multiply that by our R value, 3/5. So this will get me to my second term. This is just understanding the nature of geometric sequences. So we just get 3/20. And there you go. You know your second term. You know that u sub 2 is 3/20. And if you're a decimal person, I guess we can do this. Is 0.15. Okay? And there you have your two answers. We have the common ratio and we got the second term. All right, as always, if you got questions, you can ask the questions in the comments below. And as I post new videos to help you guys through this process, you'll be notified if you subscribe. So if you want to get notified, subscribe. If not, I'll just try to remind you in person. Okay, bye.